Tonight, more Spider-Man Sony news. Batwoman loses their star and release the Snyder Cut on comic book canon. Welcome to Comic Book Canon. Today is Friday. You can be assured that we have a new episode for you tonight. We are excited to share a bunch of news. I am Jeff with my co-host Chris from Journos Comics. Chris, how you doing?
What's going on, guys? Jeff, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. The week started off a little strange. It's really slow. I'm like, man, there's not going to be a lot of news to talk about. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got hit with a whole bunch of news that we're going to get into right now. So, it all started off Monday, Tuesday with a bunch of, online bloggers, people in the know saying, hey, there's some buzz here. There may be this Snyder Cut coming around. It could happen. And none of us really believe that because we've been hearing this for years. But guess what? The Snyder Cut wins because on Wednesday it was reported that Zack Snyder's Justice League cut will be aired on HBO Max. THR, the Hollywood Reporter, confirmed this. Snyder says it's an entirely new thing. You probably only saw a quarter of what I did. That leaves us with 4 to 6 hours of a new cut. How do you feel about this, Chris?
Man, I mean, it's exciting. I'm excited for it, but I think it continues to speak to the complete disarray that is the DCEU and with whatever Warner Brothers is trying to do in terms of salvage. So like you said, I mean, it's been almost 3 years. I myself have my critiques of Zack Snyder. I think ultimately him leading the DCEU is partial to why it's been such a mess. But, you know, when it comes to this film, I don't think that it can take a step backwards. I was extremely disappointed in what I saw in the theaters. And again, when I watched it at home, I think Zack Snyder's directing is a little outdated. Like I said, I think he has a narrow vision in terms of this total universe and the approach. And I think that the DCEU needs to move on from Zack Snyder. But for this specific film, I actually think this might be a better version, and I'm going to assume that a lot of fans are going to agree once they see it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying here. You know, to go even further back, I really liked Man of Steel, especially after Return of Superman or Superman Returns. You know, it was pretty boring, and everybody kind of agreed that it was pretty boring. They made up for it with Man of Steel. I thought it was a really good movie, and I thought it was a good first step to what the DCEU would be, almost equivalent to Iron Man. Iron Man was better, in my opinion. However, it was a good, first step towards that building the universe. But then Batman vs. Superman, and then that was really not good, and Justice League was even worse. So you're right. It can't get in my opinion, it can't get any worse. And I'm actually excited to see his vision come to life. I'm excited that he got $20 to $30 million to finish this project. There will be no reshoots. They may be doing ADR, some dialogue, things like that, but the actors will not be coming back to reshoot this, but he will have the resources to put everything together that he did shoot. Apparently could fit within 4 hours to 6 hours is what they're saying. Now, This opened up a whole this opened up more speculation to even though it was debunked today actually, but Ben Affleck, he kind of gave his support with a tweet here. You had Jason Momoa, we want, finally it's happening. You're welcome, justice served, all my Aloha, everyone who made this happen, all the fans. So those are some nice words from the cast who actually believed in what Zack Snyder was doing, and they like to see it. Ray Fisher as well played Cyborg. He had for those who fought, for those who believe. Thank you. So those are some nice sentiments from the cast that really want to kind of see Zack Snyder finish what he started. As a fan, I'm excited. We talk about this all the time, you and I, Chris. We are the biggest fans of this genre. We want to see every property do well. We don't want to see it fail. I hope this does well. I don't know what will happen after it. The power of the fans what they could do by helping to bring this to HBO Max. One thing I am excited about, though, is Darkseid will be in his version. And that's, to me, that's exciting. And obviously, goes to what he said, that it will be a completely different thing. What do you think?
Yeah, and $30 million to change this for a 3-year-old movie. I think it speaks a lot to Warner Brothers recognizing all the wrongs they've done. I think this is a fresh and new approach to trying to right those wrongs. I mean, many people wouldn't even look back; they would just keep moving forward. But I think you had an unfortunate circumstance. Again, I'll repeat. I think Zack Snyder is not the leader. He is not the Kevin Feige or even the Favreau of the DCEU. They need to move on from him. But for this film, I know it was unfortunate with what happened. Nobody saw the tragedy coming that took Snyder away from this film. They brought Joss Whedon in, who has a solid resume in this genre, but ultimately fusing those two together is kind of like mixing broccoli with chocolate. It's like I just don't think it worked. And I think that they are taking a gamble saying, here, let's dish this much money into a 3-year-old film. But I do think it's going to work, because the DCEU, it's just like, hey, let's put it all out on the cards, because we've screwed up so many times. What else can go wrong? I think this is going to be a positive thing, and it's going to be a great fan service that we're going to see come to fruition, I think.
I agree. And at least until when it comes out, there's going to be, everybody's pretty happy. And a lot of those released the Snyder Cut people are patting themselves on the back, as they should. They've done a lot of good things with suicide prevention, and also just getting what they believed in and what they wanted to see. It's finally coming to light. We also had some more DC news as well this week. Chris, what do we got?
Yeah, as a avid viewer of the CW Arrowverse, we have some kind of bumming news with Ruby Rose leaving Batwoman after season 1. So for me, this is a big blow. I've been a fan of the Arrowverse since day one, but I will say that the downward trend of each show as the seasons progress has been there every single show. It just seems to get the writing just gets worse and worse, and the characters just become so weak. And this Batwoman show, after the first episode, where I was a little bit cautious, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this. After that first episode, I got into the show, and it was a silver lining for a struggling Arrowverse. And to hear this news, it's kind of shocking. I know that she suffered a injury filming season 1, where she had to get emergency neck surgery. There was also rumors of frustration of hours put into filming and playing the role. At this point, I think all of that is speculation. We really don't know. She's leaving. She made a statement that was basically thanking everyone involved. A CW made a statement thanking her. So we don't know why this is happening, but it's happening, and it's unfortunate. Recasting in a role that we become familiar with can be extremely detrimental to the success of this show and the franchise moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. This is kind of, I mean, you've had recasting success before with Rhodey and Iron Man and Batman, Chris Nolan's Batman. But this is a lead character, so it's going to be tough to recast this part, especially something that I think we can agree there was good chemistry on within that cast, and all around. So it's going to be interesting to see what step they take. But they do want to stay in the LGBTQ community. They want to have a character or an actress that represents that. So we'll see. They're not. I don't think they're going to start production on the second season anytime in the next few months. So they have some time to cast. So. All right, moving on from our DC news, we have a mixed bag of Marvel news. So Sony, please just do the right thing for us Spider-Man fans and just follow the lead of Kevin Feige. We just got word that there is a secret Marvel film Sony is working on, where they brought on They brought in S.J. Clarkson. You may know her as the director of Defenders and Jessica Jones episodes. She's going to be directing the Secret Marvel film, and the speculation is it will be a Madam Web film. Not my first choice in characters in terms of bringing to the screen, but I mean, there are worse choices that we may get into in the next few minutes as well. Chris, how are you feeling about this news?
Well, considering that I will be sending off a specific book here to CGC probably next week.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Of Madam Web. I love this character. I enjoy this character so much. I liked it over the last, say, like about 15 to 20 years. You know, the mythos of Spider-Man and the Spider-Men and Spider-Women has really, been a breath of fresh air. We saw the Spider-Verse miniseries. We saw Web Warriors, where there's a lot more going on to where these spider people with spider powers have been around for centuries, and it's not just a luck of a draw that someone like Peter Parker got bit by a spider. It's like preordained and destiny and all these things. And Madam Web kind of sits in between, in the middle of all this, and I can really see a film's around this character be a good one if done right. But right now, with what they're doing, I just don't see this happening, because for one, you need Spider-Man. And if you don't have Spider-Man, Peter Parker, you need a Spider-Man that is, say, Miles Morales, or Jessica Drew or something. And with that happening, as you were saying, where it's like Sony doing so much to just, flood the market with these characters, what does that do when it comes to trying to bridge that gap of the Sonyverse and the MCU, really trying to focus on building the story arc of Peter Parker and, everything that they got going on surrounding him with Carnage and the Avengers on the MCU side? It seems extremely convoluted. I could see this happening years down the road, but just to try to make this work on its own right now just does not seem feasible.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're grasping for straws here. They're trying to do their own thing, be successful on their own. I really think they need to follow Marvel Studios' lead. It's been working so far. The fans are loving it. The numbers show and validate that the fans are loving it. You got a good thing, Sony. Just ride those coattails of Marvel Studios. Work together. It's what we all want to see. There's the rumor is that Charlize Theron or Amy Adams are going to be cast in Madam Web role or some sort of role. So they're looking for an A-lister to kind of drive this. But again, Chris, to what you were saying, it's really important to just kind of let's let this play out, slowly. Let's not just rush into things. And speaking of rushing into things, because there's some additional news from Sony where they are looking to potentially produce a Jackpot movie.
Right. And a lot of you might be saying, Jackpot, who is Jackpot? And really, when we talk about Madam Web and how controversial that may be, and how we're both sitting here saying this might not work. Jackpot is even from that, because we do know that Sony tried to make an Aunt May standalone film, and that might be a better option than this. Really. Now, Jackpot was created by Dan Slott. I was not a fan of Dan Slott's run at all. Jackpot came about when the Brand New Day storyline was happening after Civil War, and Peter Parker made a deal with Mephisto to erase the memories of the people that him and the people he's loved to save Aunt May's life after she was shot. What this did was it separated Mary Jane and Peter Parker. They never got married, and they were living basically separate lives. And Jackpot came into the story as somebody under a mask that Peter Parker thought was Mary Jane. And she talked like Mary Jane, looked like Mary Jane, acted like Mary Jane. And Peter Parker thought this was Mary Jane until it comes out it was a random girl named Sarah that worked for Oscorp, ended up getting some crazy powers. And for some reason, though, it never got explained. Who is this character? Why does she look like Mary Jane? She ended up passing the mantle and the costume off to another character that was ended up like doping illegal drugs to try to get super strength to emulate Spider-Man. And honestly, it's just a big conundrum of clustered stuff that just makes absolutely no sense. And like, I can think of so many, if you want to have a female lead, I can think of so many characters that Sony can roll with. I mean, Marissa Tomei's Aunt May.
Aunt May!
I don't know.
Take that over a jackpot movie any day of the week. It's ridiculous. Again, and they're hiring Mark Guggenheim. Like, what is that? Like, what is it? Just blows my mind. All right, you and I are both passionate about that. That's some not so great news from the Marvel. Let's end this news week on a positive Marvel note. How about it?
Man, yes, and this is exciting for me. I'll tell you guys, as a Marvel lover, with everything on the horizon, I would say probably with the MCU, that is, besides X-Men, I am so hyped for the new Blade movie. And we got a first look picture of Mahershala Ali as Blade. And now this is special for me because, to throw a little gem out there, I actually had a chance to meet him multiple times in person. For those that don't know, this is Prince Ali Hieroglyphics crew, straight from Oakland, California. And if you don't know, go check YouTube and check out his flows because he can rap. So I used to kick it in the Hyro studio in Oakland, and I got to see this guy firsthand. He is so talented on so many different levels. And this picture, though, just solidifies his character. I mean, look at that. He resembles Wesley Snipes so much that, I mean, this could be a situation where they could bring Wesley in, like, from the multiverse or something and have him be, like, Old Man Blade. But, you know, Mahershala Ali is somebody that I've seen do so many excellent things, you know, when it comes to True Detective, to, you know, Cottonmouth, on the season 1 of Luke Cage, which I thought that was Emmy award-winning performance on Luke Cage there. I was never into the horror genre really of comic books, but this movie and this guy playing this role has me so hyped that it's like, you know, I'm like a kid in the candy shop waiting for this one.
Yeah, I love that he shared this out this week because he's super excited. Now, granted, we don't know when Blade, what phase Blade will come into play, but we do know that he has a huge fan base, and they just nailed the casting with him. They nailed the casting with him. It could be a little weird if you look at the old, you know, the whole MCU timeline, him as Cottonmouth and coming in and playing another character. But honestly, they nailed it with him as the actor, and I am super excited about that. So that is the news for this week. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Now we're going to move on to our next weekly topic, which is the spec world. And by spec, we go to a site called coverprice.com to check out the weekly issues, the hottest issues that are based on sales data. So it's not just them speculating or anything like that. And we find it really interesting. So, you know, what we'll do right now is we'll take a look at the list of the top 10 hottest issues of this week. We had at number 10, Venom number 3 with a third print, which is debatable as the first cover appearance of Null. Number 9 is Annihilation Conquest Wraith number 1, which has a connection to Null, and Null is the hottest villain in comics right now. You had at number 8, Incredible Hulk 340, classic McFarlane issue. Number 7 is X-Men Annual 14. A lot of debate on whether that is the first appearance of Gambit or not. Number 6, Ultimate Fallout. Number 4, which, as we know, first appearance of Miles Morales Spider-Man. Number 5 is Sweet Tooth. Everybody is excited about the production produced by Robert Downey Jr. coming up. I'm not sure what platform that will be on, but it's people are excited about this. Point 1, number 1, Captain America 307. At number 2 is Hulk Future Imperfect number 1, the first appearance of Maestro, with the news that Peter David is returning to that alternate universe and giving us the origin of Maestro. And then number 1, 2 weeks in a row, Youngblood number 2, Pink variant issue where upon the news that Mark Guggenheim is writing a feature film for that Rob Liefeld property. So what we like to do, go through those top 10. There's a lot to dive into with each of those issues, but we just pick out a few from that. And Chris, what do you got? What are your favorite issues from this list?
I'll tell you, man. I'm thinking about retiring because we got Madcap number 3 on. So yeah, I don't know what's up with that, but that book is getting hot. So I'm gonna try to make my millions on that one. But no, honestly, I don't know what that's doing on the top of that list. So I got more researching to do. But the 3 that really come to life for me. I'm a classic guy. I'll go with some of the more classic books. Obviously, we have Hulk 340 classic McFarlane cover. 2 classic characters, Hulk, Wolverine. Obviously, we saw Wolverine. The first time we saw Wolverine was Battle. I think right now, Tom McFarlane is hot. He's been doing his signings with CGC. He's extremely present on social media. We had Spawn 300 and 301, which was just groundbreaking for an independent run. He's just been doing amazing things, and he's been staying so relevant that I just think this book right now is a book that people want because of the iconic artist and the iconic cover itself. We are in a situation, again, I think I said this a little bit last week, that, the market right now is kind of all over the place because of the crisis and everything going on. You got a lot of people that normally wouldn't sell or might be selling, and they're probably selling low. But then you have another half of people that are probably willing to spend and may have a little extra money in their pocket. So you get a key book like this that's already decently affordable, and I think people are really hopping on it right now, so that's probably why we see that one up there. Second on my list is really, really intriguing to me. Actually, I got two copies right here with Uncanny X-Men Annual 14 newsstand and direct copies, both minty fresh. Gambit, first cameo appearance of Gambit. Gambit's just been picking up steam for a while now. Even his first official appearance, Uncanny X-Men 266, it's definitely a modern book that has been, racking up value. What I think is going on with this book, though, is because it's extremely affordable, obviously more affordable than his first full appearance. You could probably still get this book in a decent high mid-grade for $20, $25. People are really hopping on the cameo appearance bandwagon. Now, the industry itself is always going to dictate what a true first appearance is. CGC recognized what the industry states, and they're going to write that on their labels and so forth. But we are going to dictate the market by what we demand. And I think the demand for these cameos is increasing. We see it with Hulk 180, with the cameo of Wolverine. We've seen it with Avengers 195 with the full back page appearance of Taskmaster. We've seen it with Amazing Spider-Man 299 with the full back splash of Venom, and people are arguing this is their true appearance. Now, they are picking up steam. I think they're hot books to get, but ultimately, I don't think the market is ever going to dictate that demand for those first appearances like Hulk 181, the iconic cover. It's just, they're never going to catch up, but it is a good market right now to invest into affordable cameo appearances, because I think ultimately they're going to keep going. So that's number 2. And then lastly, the one that stood out for me as a Spider-Man fan, Ultimate Fallout number 4, first appearance of Miles Morales. This book, I said, I know a guy that has a long box full of these books, and I'm telling you, in about 20 to 30 years, I think this guy is going to send his kids to college on that long box full of these books. This is one modern book that I think is going to gain a really solid value in the next few decades. Now, this is a situation where I think Marvel just did something unexpected, because I always talk about how DC, Marvel, these publishers usually do 2 things to stay fresh with characters. They will try to create a brand new character, and they usually don't last. Or they'll make a carbon copy off of a character that is so iconic. How many Hulks have we seen? How many Supermans have we seen? How many Spider-Mans have we seen? But yet here is one where they kind of fuse those 2 things together. You took the iconic character of Spider-Man, but yet took such a different character under that mask with a different personality and wove a story that really worked. And he has turned into a fan favorite. We're seeing him in Into the Spider-Verse. A lot of fans calling for number 2 of an animated Into the Spider-Verse. We want to see a live action Into the Spider-Verse with maybe this character showing up. There's demand for seeing this character in the MCU. So a lot of good things going for Miles Morales. And I just think that book is not slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think they really hit it out the park with Miles. He is such a fan favorite. And yeah, if you compare him to how many other Hulks there are, it's like the substance behind Miles, there's just something special about him. Whereas again, carbon copies of these other characters, it hasn't worked. So I completely agree with you on that point. And that about wraps up our Comic Canon cover price spec corner. What we have now, though, very exciting, because we asked all you guys, we had a call to action. We asked all you guys to send us in your comic book grail. The issue you've been searching for your whole comic book collecting life, or one that you have obtained, but whatever it is the one you have been searching for, or two. We got some of those as well. So let's get to it. We got some great entries here, and they're it's a good variety, wouldn't you say, Chris?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It shows how collecting is so unique to the individual collector. I love it.
Absolutely, yeah. And so let's just get into it with Mr. Gretzky 9966. Boy Commandos number 15. It's the first appearance of he tells us it's the first appearance of the Crazy Quilt Boy Commandos. It came out in 1946 by Jack Kirby, one of my top 15 Golden Age Grail books. He wants to find it. I have to admit, Chris, I am not too familiar with this issue. A 1946 Kirby, though, is an absolute gem. Anything Kirby does is an absolute gem. And even his most recent issues are ones you'd want in your collection. This one seems to be obscure, and hey, Mr. Gretzky, I really hope you get it. How do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not too familiar with myself, but it's interesting because I don't own many. I don't own any Marvel. Well, technically it wouldn't be Marvel, but I don't own any Timely Golden Age. I own 1 or 2 DC Golden Ages, but the handful of Golden Ages I have are kind of obscure. I got a Pig and some Harvey Dagwood, of course. Nothing extremely valuable, such as some Golden Age Jack Kirby, but I'm all for it. We obviously up in the superhero genre, but we tend to overlook that the Golden Age was full of so many more genres that sometimes go overlooked.
Yeah, 100%. It's amazing because of what the era we're living in today, where it's just bombarded with mainstream pop culture, Spider-Man, MCU, DCEU, those kinds of things that are in the face of not many collectors. You kind of forget about what's come in the past, and that's something that you need to hold on to, because a guy like Kirby doing these kinds of the art just it speaks for himself. He's an absolute legend, and this is kind of where they started back then in that Golden Age era, and even before. So with that said, let's move on to our next book, which is from Comic Book STL. I would assume that would mean Comic Book St. Louis. He sent us in Avengers 57. This is the first appearance of Vision. He says to us, "This is my Holy Grail comic. I'll get one someday." We absolutely hope you do, because that is a key book right there from an iconic Avenger.
Absolutely. I love what the MCU did with Paul Bettany's Vision as well. This is a character that I hope to see more of, not only just on the screen, but in more modern comics. There's a lot of depth there and a lot of things that they can do. I was at an individual's home last year. I brought my son because this guy was selling off his whole collection. And when I walked into the room, there was boxes everywhere, and he had one laying on the table there for a decent grade for like $320, which is an amazing price. But unfortunately, I had nothing near that in my pocket. I told my son to go dig through the dollar box and pull a few of those out. So, but it was awesome to see still.
Well, hopefully he got something from that, some gems in there when he was digging through those long boxes. But unfortunately, you guys didn't take home that Avengers 57. Moving on, though, we got T Mao. T Mao sent this one that if you're a comic book collector, you're going to want this issue. It's Detective Comics number 27. He tells us that I'm going with Detective Comics 27, a book I've been wanting since I saw the first Tim Burton Batman. Batman and Spider-Man are my two favorite comic book characters. I got my Amazing Fantasy 15 last year, so this book will be next. I'm pretty sure I'll never own it unless I hit the lotto or find a copy at a yard sale or something. Batman is just a man in a suit with no real superpowers, so we can relate to him. Yeah, I mean, I'm rooting for. First of all, kudos on that Amazing Fantasy 15. That's one in many lists of grails. But yeah, it's a challenge to find a Detective Comics 27 out there. Like, they're not laying around on on a sidewalk, or even any comic book shop you go into. A majority of them do not have this hanging in their shop. It is a highly sought after issue, a highly rare issue, especially in a good grade. So we absolutely wish you the best. Is that right, Chris?
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for my day to, find an estate sale or a garage sale where somebody's just basically throwing their stuff away. I hear so many stories. So, I think we all can hope to be so lucky one day. Or like you said, win the lottery and just, kind of go careless on our hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a joy. All right. Moving on to another kind of pretty much a rare issue, not as rare as Detective 27, but we have No Town Comics with Showcase number 4. He tells us with a close, because he wants Detective Comics 27 as well, but a close second is Showcase number 4, which is much more of a possibility. I got this picture from eBay, and it's not an item I'm currently watching. I'm getting married this year, so I'm going to have to wait to get one of these bad boys. Yeah, I think that's a good move. No Town Comics. I'm not sure how much she's into your collection or your hobby, but as great as that would be to have, let's make a happy wife equal happy life on that note. But this is a classic issue. It's the first appearance of the Silver Age Flash, and it's definitely one that most collectors want in their collection as well, right, Chris?
Why not? Why not? I've actually, a good viewer, Isaac, has been harassing me to show off my Flash collection. He must think I have one of those in there. So I'm like, I don't have much Flash, but it's interesting because I remember as a kid, I was growing up watching the Flash show, the 90s Flash show and everything. And Barry Allen and the Flash was a character that actually appealed to me, but I just never got into buying his comics. So going after this issue for me hasn't been top on the list, but obviously it's one that's to be sought after, and Flash is a really awesome character that has a lot of fan base. Obviously, I was just joking about saying Isaac's been harassing me, but I just say that because it's like, you got people demanding this character and they want to see it. So this is a book that's going to continue to be sought after, and I hope that grail is attained.
Absolutely, but get married first. Make sure that wedding is paid for.
Right.
Next on our list is from 40 Years of Comics. I like this because this shows variety in our viewership here. So he has Strange Adventures number 180, which is the first appearance of Animal Man, which is on your left. And then My Greatest Adventure number 80, First Doom Patrol. So he owns both of these now. He said he got one of those about 20 years ago and the other about 20 days ago. He did not clarify which one was which, but these are interesting books. They're a lot of mainstream people are probably not familiar with Animal Man, more so Doom Patrol now that the DC Universe has that series. But I love seeing this because this shows who you are as a collector. A lot of people, it's easy for them to say they want Amazing Fantasy 15. Me, that's on my list. But you know, it's just I love these kind of more obscure books. I would say again, Animal Man and Doom Patrol are not up there with the other kind of DCU IPs.
Right. Absolutely. And again, yeah, to your point, everyone is not after the same thing. Everyone doesn't collect for the same reasons, and it's not always about value. You think of going for the key Silver Ages, the Fantastic Four, Hulk #1s, Amazing Fantasy 15, X-Men #1, or even going back, Detective Comics 20, Superman #1, Action Comics #1. I mean, those are like the cream of the crop, right? But those are attainable to someone or not, or they may think they're attainable at some point down the road. Some people aren't even thinking about those because it's just not what they're interested in. It's always about what makes you happy, what you enjoy, and that price tag can range. It could be a $20 to $100 book, or it could be a $500,000 book. But if it means something to you, for you to get your hands on it, that's what matters.
Yep, it's all I get. It's not how much this is worth; it's how much are you willing to pay for it, and that's how the market dictates these books and the values, and et cetera, et cetera. We all know that. All right, and our last entry from My Comic Grail CBC comes from M. Lazik. He has a copy of Incredible Hulk 181. Again, another one we all wish we would have. This is just iconic, especially how in the past 20 years, how popular Wolverine has become with the X-Men films, how even more popular he will become when he enters the MCU. So this is a great one to have because it's only going to grow in value. M. Lazik was telling us, I finally got my Comic Grail CBC last week. He got it last week. He struggled to find one in his price range. It's faded but complete, and most important, all of mine. Massive day for me. Never thought I'd be able to find a copy in my price range, but here she is. Logan has been my favorite character since I was a kid. Feels amazing to finally own this book. Well, we'd like to give you a big congratulations. That's not easy to find in your price range. It's an absolute classic book. Again, one of those that I know I would want. I don't know. I mean, do you have one, Chris?
I don't. That's another one that you just you look back at your decades of collecting and you wish, right? But yeah, and I'm with you. As soon as Daniel Radcliffe takes over that role, man, and does that for the next 20 years, this book is gonna be even more special now. But no, but for real, like when we look at Bronze Age books and in the Bronze Age keys, this is one of those books that is almost an era-less, meaning it's going to compete with those Silver Age iconic books because Wolverine is such an iconic character. And I don't see this book slowing down. I think this book is going to continue to add thousands to its value, even in lower mid grades. So honestly, people that don't have it right now, a lot of people aren't going to be able to attain it in the next few years, I think.
Would you say this? Would you say if you find a deal that you're on the fence about that you can afford right now, but you don't know if you want to pull the trigger, maybe you can find a better deal, would you say it would be in your best interest to pull the trigger and get that book?
Absolutely. If you have the money, if you have a budget, if you're a collector and you have a budget, and this isn't even streamlined to just Wolverine fans, because I always talk about we collect what we're passionate about. There's different ways of collecting. But if you are a collector that cares at least a little bit about key books or about return on investment or having these key books that are going to gain value, I absolutely agree with doing exactly what you just said, Jeff. That's where first you got to know your budget, though. I'm not in that boat at all. I know for a fact that even like probably a 0.5 of this book, I don't have the money for it just because I don't have the money for it. But if you have a certain set amount of money set aside, and maybe you're not even looking at this book. Maybe you have a certain amount of money that can go to a few different decent keys, but you see an opportunity to grab this book, I would definitely recommend doing it if that money is there on that table, because you're not going to lose out. At the end of the day, if you don't want to hold on to that book, this is a book that you will be able to flip and get a return on investment for in the future. Absolutely, no question.
Flip and ROI are the key words here. No doubt about that, especially with what's coming to the MCU. All right. So That's all for our audience entries. We really appreciate you guys sending these in. Keep them coming. See my comic grail CBC. Keep them coming. But we like to share with you guys our grails. We'll start with Chris here. Chris, what do you got?
Well, being a big Spider-Man fan, I had to go with a Spider-Man book. Hope 181 is up there for me too. Like I said, getting unreachable almost. But this is another book that's kind of in that same category. Iconic cover, iconic artist, iconic first appearance, and that's Amazing Spider-Man 129, first appearance of the Punisher, Gil Kane art. Classic cover. This is one of my favorite covers of all time. I did a video on my channel a little while back about the top 20 Spider-Man covers of all time, and this was number 2. Number 1 was Amazing Spider-Man 300, but falling into number 2 of the top Spider-Man covers. This book, this cover, it's amazing. It's another one of those Bronze Age books that are almost in a league of their own with the Hulk 181. Not quite to that level. Obviously, Punisher is extremely popular, but not on that Wolverine level. But for me, again, being a Spider-Man fan and wanting to really finish off my Spider-Man run, this is a book that I need to get my hands on. It was actually on my 2020 want list, and I really, really hope that this book can be attainable in the near future for me. It's a book that I felt is attainable. Like, I didn't go with something that I didn't think I could ever get my hands on. This is one that's probably the hardest out there that I could attain, but still in reach, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but it is one of those too that will only grow.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
I feel like there are plans for Punisher in the MCU, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the introduction of Frank Castle in the Netflix shows was successful, and I think he's going to come back and play him again. I hope it's within the MCU proper in terms of like either Disney Plus. I can't imagine a Punisher series on Disney Plus, but maybe some form of that in the films. We can only hope. Now, as for my book, it's really nothing. It's not one that's like, oh wow, that's interesting. But it's something that's special to me. If you watched this last week where we talked about my first comic, mine was a Spider-Man issue, a special giveaway issue. From all that my parents gave me, and I still have to this day. And Spider-Man has always, like, from as long as I can remember, probably back to the age of 3, Spider-Man has always been big in my life, and that's something I'll never digress from. And it's going to be Amazing Fantasy 15 for me. I mean, this is a book I would love to have. This is my comic book grail. Any form, any version, any grade of this, I would love to have this book. I don't know the reality of that right now. It's quite expensive, but I'm hoping one day I'll be able to make that happen. Put it on my mantle here. I know my daughter is a huge fan of Spider-Man. She's 4 now, and it just touches my heart, warms my heart, and it's definitely something that I would like to bring to the fold. But speaking of bringing to the fold, we're going to fold and close up this segment right now. Thank you so much for participating in my comic Grail CBC. Please keep sending them in. We may do this feature again. It definitely was fun for us. But now we're going to move on to our Q&A. We got some questions here, Chris. Let's why don't we just get to them right now? So actually, Johnny Zuko has given us an interesting comment here. I'm a big advocate for Ben Affleck as Batman, and I thought he was good in the role. Can we get a Suicide extended cut? I want to see Joker and what Leto was going to do with the character. And this is a perfect example of the kind of mess that the DCEU is. Because David Ayer, the director of Suicide Squad, had a different vision, and apparently he didn't get to see it through. Now that everybody's released the Snyder cut, it's happening. People are asking to see if there's going to be a David Ayer cut. I don't think that'll happen. I don't think that Ben Affleck will reprise his Batman role. I do think he's very supportive of the release of Snyder Cut, but that's going to be a closing of a chapter. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I agree. And again, it just speaks to the fact that what was going on behind the scenes. I mean, Warner Brothers has just not had a handle on this at all, and I think they rushed into this expanded universe, and it's sad, it really is. But when it comes to Ben Affleck, I agree. I agree. I think that when he was initially announced, it was tough to wrap your head around for a lot of people, including myself. Although he's a great talent as an actor, hands down. But can he make this work? And I think he did. And what's sad about it is we didn't get to see it be fleshed out. So you saw him basically in two films, and Batman versus Superman failed in so many ways. And then of course, Justice League is what it is. We talked about that. And we didn't really get to see what Ben Affleck could have done as Batman. Hopefully, we'll get to see a little more with the Snyder cut of Justice League. But like you said, even if that changes audiences' perspectives or changes the fans' perspective, and they start, we want Batfleck. I think you're right. I think Ben Affleck has made his bed, and I think he's closed that chapter.
Yeah, it's not an easy role to just jump back into because you sign on for that role, and you're dedicating 10 years of your life to it. It didn't play out that way, but the training that goes in and dedication that goes into something like that, it's going to be tough to just jump back into. Plus, they have Robert Pattinson that it's in production. That film is in production right now. Who knows what time period that's going to take? That's again why DCEU. It's a bit of a. There are some highlights to it. I will say I don't think Ben Affleck was my favorite Batman, but favorite fight scene in Batman vs Superman, where you first in that warehouse, was just outstanding. All right, moving on to Isaac Maynard. Do you think this Zack Snyder cut? Is it going to have Steppenwolf still inside the film? And if it's going to have a dark side, why am I not showing these comments? It's going to have a dark side in it. Are we going to have way too many villains? You know what? I that's the Spider-Man 3 kind of curse, that having the way too many villains. Zack Snyder, his plans for Steppenwolf weren't seen through either, and apparently he looks completely different than what Zack Snyder wanted him to look like. Darkseid was supposed to be the mastermind of the villain behind the Justice League, and the mastermind. Steppenwolf was just carrying out orders, and apparently was even below one more level below Darkseid, or two more levels. So I think it will still have Steppenwolf, but I think we'll see how Darkseid plays into this, and he's the one pulling the strings. And Steppenwolf in the Justice League was just this character with no substance that kind of just was collecting the boxes, and that was it. That I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I thought. So I mean, we know that Marvel has gotten some flack about the depth to the villains and this repetitive idea of what the villain is, so easily defeated. All these things not well fleshed out and written. I have to say, out of all the superhero movies, at least over the last 20 years, outside of one, Steppenwolf was the worst. I mean, there was just no depth to it. The story behind the intentions was horrible. The only other one that I feel was worse in the last 20 years was Topher Grace's Venom. And to Isaac's question and point here, do they bring this into where, you look at I think one thing Sam Raimi did great with Spider-Man films was his villains. Willem Dafoe was great. I didn't like the costume. Doc Ock was just Alfred Molina, right? Oh, perfect. Sandman. Oh, just what an amazing portrayal. But then you bring in the most iconic villain in the midst of all this, Venom, and it's just garbage. So does Darkseid get that treatment because you're trying to shove him in? But ultimately, I'm optimistic with that not happening, because I think the fact that Steppenwolf was already so bad that they can kind of bring the Darkseid character in and have more of a substance role, kind of, overshadowing all of it. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, maybe Darkseid is that guy that's pulling the strings. He's the puppet master, and Steppenwolf was seen as kind of his dog that's just going out and making it happen. Hopefully, yeah, I'm hopeful too. I want this to do well. I want it to be a great closing chapter to this Zack Snyder verse. I don't like that term, but that's what I do hope. So, but only time will tell. We're hopefully less than a year out from seeing his final cut. Jeff Stout, I have the Youngblood issue. I think he's referring to Youngblood number 2. I would tell him if he's looking to sell it now. There are so many copies out there, this was in the era of the 90s where they just mass produced it. People thought they would buy all of these copies up to get their kids into college, and it just is not playing out like that. It's a hot issue right now. Mark Guggenheim is tapped to write the feature-length film. Again, if you're looking to sell, I would sell it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see this book gaining much value at all. Maybe a few dollars here and there over the years. I have 3 copies. One of them signed by Rob Liefeld. I'll hold on to that just because of what it is. My only argument against selling right now would be to actually take a cross country trip, raid as many LCSs as you can. Raid their dollar bins, grab about 10 to 50,000 issues of it, hoard them all for the next 30 years, and then you might be able to sell one for $100.
Yeah, okay. That's quite the elaborate plan. We're not suggesting that, but if you, I mean, yeah, I guess whatever. If you have the time, go for it. Why not? But that's good to know that I have that issue too. Chris said he has 3, so go for it. Oh, he wants to know if should he get it graded?
Ooh,
I don't know, man. That's like because correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but you're paying more money than the comic is worth to get it graded.
Absolutely, hands down. This is a book that has picked up a little bit of steam. First off, it's selling a lot of copies because there's a million copies out there to be sold. Okay, so that alone is a variable that's a reflection in its sales outside of just demand itself, right? So the demand, though, I believe is what you call a bubble demand. I believe this demand is going to pop. The demand, like I said, I think the demand is only adding a few dollars to it. It's adding a few dollars to this value, and I think that's going to pop. You're going to spend, if you send that into CGC, you're going to spend, with shipping included, $35 for a book that's barely worth $5. Now, the only, and again, I'm all about everyone collecting for the reasons they want to collect. Some people like to slab for other values. There's some kind of intrinsic value that's not monetary. If for some reason that book is nostalgic to you, maybe it was the first book you ever collected. Maybe you're just a big Rob Liefeld fan, or you're a Prophet or Shadowhawk fan, and that book just means a lot to you, and you like the aesthetics of what a slab book looks like, and you want to display it on a shelf or something, and you don't mind spending $35 to do that, fine. But if you are thinking about slabbing it, hoping to get a 9.8 just to try to flip it or sell it for a return on investment, I wouldn't go there. I would take that $35 and I put it in a money market, and you probably get more pennies on your return than trying to slab that book and selling it.
I completely agree. He says he's 50 and it's not the best retirement fund for him. That's well said. All right, so my buddy Adrian is here. He's watching the show. Very happy to have you. He's a huge Star Wars fan, but he is, we had no Star Wars news. This is the first week we've done the show. We've had no Star Wars news, which, I'm so excited about what's come out in the past 2 weeks. So we got a lot of goodness there, but he would definitely like a Spider-Verse too. But guess what? It's happening 100%. You're going to get Spider-Man 2099 in there. Who else are you going to get, Chris? What else are they all the other characters that were in there. That was a fan. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Nicolas Cage's Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, like all of those characters. That was such an amazing film. Absolutely amazing film. It's something I feel like you haven't, just the tone, just the feel of it. I hadn't seen something like that before, especially the animation. I haven't seen something like that before. Top to bottom, just an outstanding film. And you will be getting a Spider-Verse 2. It is confirmed. I don't know what the release date is on that, but I am so excited for it, especially with Spider-Man 2099.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that ends our broadcast of Comic Book Canon on May the 22nd. We appreciate you all for joining us. It's been a blast. A lot of really kind of like exciting news, but also divisive news. This is what we love to talk about. Thank you for being here. While you're at it, though, why don't you subscribe to us? Why not subscribe to Comic Book Canon on all the social medias, the Twitter, the Instagram? We'll get a Facebook page up soon. Just subscribe to us and have fun with us and join us every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time, so we can talk about the things we love, comic books. Chris, what are your parting words?
Yeah, I want to just remind everyone that Diamond is back up and running. Your local LCSs are getting books in, so guys, go out and support your local shops, whether that's by mail order or pickup. And I know in my area, actually, we just got the go for businesses to open up to limited capacity. So they're scheduling customers to come in, and it's like 5 at a time, and you gotta keep space, and I think it's like 10 minutes in the store. You got to get in and get out. But right now, guys, just any way you can support your LCSs, that would be my closing words this week, because I think it's pivotal right now to really, if we got the money to spend and we want to keep buying books, let's get out there and do the best we can to support.
Can't say it any better than that. It's very important for these local comic book shops that they need our support. Let's keep this going for them. We'll have more. We'll cover this more in the following weeks. We really want to kind of see how this first week does for comic book shops, and we'll be getting in touch with some of those comic book shops and bringing them right here. But again, thank you so much for following us. Thank you so much for watching with us tonight. We hope to see you again next week. Hit us up with anything you'd like to see or recommend us cover. We'd be happy to do it. But until then, we hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Friday. Peace.